Good morning, guys. Good morning. Welcome to Humanity Unplugged podcast. I am your host, Jermaine McCrimmon, and this is a friendly podcast. We invite everyone to tune in, to listen, take off your shoes, put up your feet, get something cold and refreshing, or something hot if you like coffee or tea, and let's talk about it. In today's episode, we will talk about teaming up against the United States. Uh, if you don't know, if you happen to be under a rock and or you live in a cave, or maybe you live off the grid in the woods and you have no solar panels and you don't have any type of communications to the outside world, we in the United States have decided to butt in and commence war with Iran and with any other nationality or country that doesn't agree with what we say. And before we get deep into this topic, I'd like to give a shout out to all of the fan clubs, all the listeners, all of the countries, continents that we are broadcasting and that you guys are listening to. We'd like to thank everyone, and I mean everyone, for downloading and for listening to the information we put out twice a week. For those of you who don't know, we put out information, positive information, information to make you go about your day differently, give you food of thought to add a condiment to your sandwich or to your breakfast. We like to be able to give you that twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. New episodes are always uploaded Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now we do have a caveat for that because sometimes I'm unable to get it done on a Tuesday and Thursday due to me doing necessary things I have to do. I'm unable to sit down and conversate with you guys. Oftentimes, I'm at loss of what to talk about because of the fact that I talk about a lot of different things. Now, this podcast has been up and running, coming along 2 years now, and we have about 135 episodes to be exact. And I'd like to thank each and every last one of you for downloading and listening to us. If you'd like to reach us on TikTok, Humanity Unplugged Podcast, YouTube, Humanity Unplugged Podcast, and all social media platforms is the same. Along with reaching us on podcast stations, you can listen to us and download us and enjoy the different topics we talk about. We're never going to gossip to you. We're not going to give you what Atlanta Housewives is talking about or what's going on in regular controlled environment. We're going to give you things that we think you should hear that's necessary for you to grow and for your family to get information that they might can take on and pass down to somebody else. And today is no different. So teaming up against the United States, it simply means that Trumpy Trump, the president, the one and only, people have called him many names. I'd rather not get into that. But I will tell you that Trump is a different person. And a lot of times he likes to step out in places that a lot of the United States people feel allegedly we don't have to get involved in. And again, this is one of those choices or one of these decisions that's made by him to get involved in things that we should perhaps mind our business. So right now, other countries and other people to be are looking at the things that's going on in this war. And they're saying what they don't agree with and what they believe is an issue. And they like to voice their opinion or give aid to Iran. I don't know if you know, but the United States have said that Iran, Iraq should not have nuclear war facilities nor missiles, but everybody else can. And that is why this has started, along with the obvious of having a bunch of oil Whoever controls the oil controls the world, allegedly. You didn't hear that from me. I'm just telling you what's being said out here on these social media platforms. Now, I would like to suggest to you to use your imagination and understand that there's news all around the world. There's information always being distributed on all platforms for people to receive and determine what is true and what is false. I leave it up to you to do your own research and understanding of what come across your table you believe is accurate. So what we're about to encounter is some news that's being broadcast, and I like this news. I really feel that they give you an even kill basis of what they feel the society needs to hear, know, and understand about what's going on in their community and in their world. And I like to share this with you so you can get your own concept, your own idea, your own theory of thought of what you believe is happening in our world. Please take the time to listen up, and please take the time to pass this, share this, and give the understanding and wisdom and knowledge to anyone that's willing to listen. Now, these are not what I believe. This is just what's being played. I decided to share it with you. Here we go, guys. 1:30, teaming up against United States. The first thing you will listen to is what Trump says, what happened if anyone decides to team up against United States in this war. Here we go.
The US-Israeli war on Iran continues to get bigger. President Trump is now warning other countries against supporting Iran or pay a heavy price. His threat is direct. Any country that supplies weapons to Iran will face a 50% tariff on everything they export to the United States. No exceptions, no escape. That warning now has a name: China. Trump has made it clear this threat is aimed squarely at China. He says if Beijing helps Iran militarily, there will be problems. But what kind of problems? Trump doesn't say.
China is preparing to ship weapons to Iran.
Well, if China does that, China's going to have big problems, okay?
Why China is in Trump's crosshairs? Intelligence reports suggest that Beijing may be preparing to send advanced weapons to Iran, including portable missile systems, that can now shoot down low-flying aircraft, the kind that could target US military planes. Reports say these shipments could even be routed through other countries to hide where they are coming from. China, however, has denied all of this.
China firmly opposes the United States' practice of generalizing the concept of national security. This kind of practice seriously impedes normal economic and trade exchanges between Chinese and U.S. enterprises and is not in the interests of all parties, including U.S. enterprises and consumers. China will continue to firmly safeguard its legitimate rights and interests.
This lady that's speaking is Mao Ning. She represents China overall and what they believe in when it comes to China helping out, or how they feel on the tariffs that will be imposed on them if they do help out with Iran.
Trump's warning against China comes right after talks between the US and Iran ended with no deal. Trump says Iran refused to give up its nuclear program, and that was a deal breaker. So what does this mean for the world? It means this conflict is spreading from a regional war to a global power struggle. On one side, the United States. On the other, Iran. And now, potentially China, the world's second largest economy. And then there's more at stake than just military power. If these tariffs threats become real, global trade could take a massive hit. Prices could rise, supply chains could break, and economies far from the war zone could still feel the pain.
As you know, prices have already risen very high. They can go higher if they don't get a hold to this. So Trump is trying to put the squeeze on Iran. And now China is saying, well, we'll help them out. We do believe in being independent and having your own nuclear program. Why is that a problem for Iran to have it?
Finally, there's no longer just about Iran or even the United States. The lines are widening. The stakes are rising. as Trump directs American economic sword towards China. The world's top economic watchdog is sounding the alarm. The International Monetary Fund is warning that any knee-jerk or unilateral economic moves could make an already fragile situation worse. The IMF says countries need to act with caution and not escalation, because the impact of the crisis won't just be felt by major powers, but also by the most vulnerable economies.
The IMF is a place where they all go and they sit down and talk about different issues. All countries come and sit down. And what you're about to hear is a lady that represents IMF, and this happened April 9th, and she talked about adding fuel to the fire, how to stay out of this warfare, try not to feed into it, and stay neutral.
Especially those far removed from the conflict.
So I appeal to all countries to reject go-it-alone actions, export controls, price controls.
This is Kristalina Georgievna, if I said it right. Kristalina Georgievna, Managing Director, International Monetary Funds, and she's telling you what you need to do. This happened in March 9th, 2026 in Washington. It's called Spring Meetings of IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Bank Group.
And so on, that can further upset global conditions. Don't pour gasoline on the fire.
And with global powers now hovering over the edge, the conflict is one escalation away from drawing in countries far beyond Iran's neighborhood.
So this is the first thing. So Trump is saying, of course, we know they have allies. Iran have allies, have a lot of people that like them. So now China says, hey, listen, man, we'll help you out during your little crisis. We'll loan you some bread. We'll give you some money. We'll give you what you need to keep afloat. You know what I'm saying? F United States. We don't care nothing about them trying to come in there and bully y'all. We're not with the bully program. So, whatever you need us to do, we got your back. And Trump don't like that. And Trump said, if that does happen, there's going to be repercussions. So now when that happened, of course, we got a major problem, right? So China says, yo, you mean to tell me you trying to come at us and raise our tariffs if we help out Iran? So now China make a phone call to their big brother. And China big brother, whether you know it or not, is Russia. Let's listen up to what Russia has to say about it. Here we go.
A new flashpoint is emerging in global energy war. And this time, it's not just about Iran and the US. It's about a direct collision between Washington and Beijing. And now a new report is adding a security dimension to the standoff. A report suggests Iran secretly acquired a Chinese spy satellite, which it used to track US military bases across West Asia, which means this conflict is no longer just about oil, but also about intelligence, surveillance, and strategic advantage. There have been reports that China is supplying Iran with advanced weapons.
I'm sorry, guys. I know I said Russia, but first I think it's China.
In that Beijing has denied. Meanwhile, the United States has decided to tighten the screws on Iran's oil trade in response to the collapse of last weekend's peace talks. And in doing so, it is also taking aim at China, Iran's biggest oil customer. The US has announced it will not renew a temporary sanctions relief, which had allowed the sale of Iranian oil stranded at sea. In simple terms, even that limited breathing space for Iran's oil exports is now being shut down. Washington has warned it will not allow Beijing to continue sourcing oil from Iran. The US has even called China an unreliable global partner, accusing it of stockpiling oil and distorting global supply chains. To understand why this matters, you have to look at the history. Now, for years, even under sanctions, Iran's oil has found its way to China, often through discounted deals, shadow tankers, and complex shipping networks. Beijing, in effect, has been the lifeline of Iran's energy exports. And now, Washington is trying to cut that lifeline off. But as the US turns up the pressure, another player is stepping in: Russia.
Here we
In
go.
Beijing, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said Moscow is ready to compensate for any energy shortfall faced by China.
Russia can certainly make up for the shortage in resources that has emerged in China and in other countries that are interested in working with us on an equal and mutually beneficial basis. Russia has said this more than once. The president has addressed this issue as well, including in connection with plans by European countries, the European Commission, to cut all energy ties with Russia altogether.
One second, guys. It's a commercial. We got to let it go.
Guidance. This is no longer just about Iranian oil. It's about a realignment of global energy flows. Russia, already under Western sanctions due to war in Ukraine, is projecting itself as an alternative supplier. For China, this is a delicate balance. On one hand, it relies heavily on Iranian oil. On the other, rising energy prices and disrupted shipping routes may hurt its economy like the most of the world. So Beijing is now walking a tightrope between economic needs and geopolitical risks. And right at the center of this tension is President Trump's strategy. The goal is to cut off Iran's oil revenue, pressure Tehran into a deal, and force China to reconsider its energy dependence on Iran. As the US tightens Iran's sanctions, what emerges is not Tehran's isolation, but a shifting network of alliances for energy security. Now, for more on this, we are joined by Jonas Perello-Plessner, Executive Director at Alliance of Democracies Foundation, a foreign policy expert and former Danish diplomat. He's joining us live from Copenhagen. Jonas, welcome to the program. Beginning with, how significant is this report about a Chinese-linked spy satellite in Iran? Are we now looking at a shift from an energy conflict to a full-blown strategic and military alignment between China and Iran?
If this is confirmed, I mean, the Chinese government, as you also had it in noted, has sort of denied that this is happening. But if it's confirmed, this is, of course, quite major. It shows that it's moved beyond just energy, beyond diplomatic support from China to something military. And, of course, such a satellite system, surveillance satellite system, could have helped the Iranian target bases, U.S. bases in the Gulf, which we've seen happening over these weeks of conflict. So definitely it could have made a difference. We'll, of course, have to wait to see further reports to have it fully confirmed. And for the Chinese, what would be the interest? Of course, the military one would be testing seeing some of the American systems in action, and then testing that for their own military development. And then, of course, kind of supporting a regional ally.
Let me just say this, guys, so you know. United States sell missiles, guns, electronics, allegedly, to all these other countries like Iran, China, all over the world. And now, amongst selling these stuff and trading these goods, it is a possibility that they're using our own weapons against us. This is part of what goes on when you sell goods within countries. You sell your technology, your information structure, infrastructure. These are the things that's being pushed around within the countries. So this is what it is. And now, United States is furious with Russia. They're furious with China because these two countries want to help Iran because Chinese get the oil from them. Russia get oil from them. They all work together. They don't understand why this is going on like this. All because of Trump don't want them to have nuclear warheads. All this is alleged. Nothing is facts. You know, we just talk about this stuff, but there's no facts to it. They all sat down at the table and break bread together. Just what it is.
I would say otherwise, the Chinese have otherwise kept out of sort of in any way trying to sort of supply direct weapons to Iran and stay more sort of diplomatic on the surface by mainly saying calling for parties for restraint and an end to the conflict.
Right, but with Donald Trump tightening oil sanctions and warning Beijing, can the US realistically stop China from buying Iranian oil, given the long history of shadow trade networks?
It will be hard, but of course, what the U.S. is doing now is what it looks to amount like a full blockade of the Strait of Hormuz in the other end, where the Iranians control it.
So Hormuz, if you don't know, is where the oil is in the water, and the passage, safe passage through all that. The United States got tons of naval ships out there, and they're actually just creating a blockade of what can come in and what can come out. And it's sad, but we invade their water allegedly. We do all this stuff allegedly, and then we talk about we want peace. We talk about we want everyone to work together, but yet you're trying to control someone else's oil and who they spend their money with, basically.
So in that sense, it will make a sort of stop for potentially also for Chinese energy reserves. There will, of course, be oil flowing to China from other mains, but Iran is a huge contributor to sort of 80 to 90% of its oil go to China. So it's really its base customer. China can survive without this for a while. They have huge strategic reserves, and of course other.
Did you hear that, guys? 90% of Iran's oil go to China. 90% of their oil goes to China. You think China not going to sit here and say, do you guys need help? But of course, if all your bread is coming from one person, you're going to make sure they straight. China got a great interest in Iran to make sure that they're okay. They get most of their oil resources from these guys.
Ways of getting oil. But definitely it will make an impact if this goes on for longer. And it does, as you say, enlarge the conflict to be there was a regional conflict between the US and Iran and Israel, and now potentially to be one that involves China as well. And of course, this puts a lot of pressure and uncertainty around the meeting between President Trump and President Xi in China that's supposed to be happening in a little bit less than a month.
Right, and before I let you go, I also intend to ask if Russia is stepping in to supply energy to China. Are we witnessing the emergence of a parallel energy bloc involving Russia, China, and Iran? And what does that mean for the global balance of power?
I think overall we definitely see a sort of alliance of autocrats in the same way that Russia has gotten support from Iran with the Shahid drones in the war. It's gotten support from North Korea with soldiers, and it's gotten a lot of material, economic, and diplomatic support from China. So definitely Russia is trying to exploit that field and see all of this as part of getting its sort of access confirmed. And of course, for it, the main goal is being able to continue its war in Ukraine without people really noticing any longer, because all eyes are focused on the Middle East.
So again, remember, Russia is still at war with Ukraine. Very good point, because now I didn't even think about that anymore, but they still in war over there in Ukraine. Russia, I got to do a little something over there and see what's going on, because it's still a war over there as well on every hand. The last thing I want to show you guys and talk about when we close on this is the cockiness and arrogantness of some of these leaders. And we're going to go to Uganda now. And Uganda leader, this ain't the first time he step out and says some crazy stuff out his mouth. I'm not mad at him. He's free to do what he want to do and say what he want to say. Everyone doesn't like it, of course, because when you're on the main stage and you want to say something out your mouth, people will have an opinion on it. So just like me on giving out these podcasts or whatever, people don't have to like what I say. And besides the fact, people probably are against some of the things I might say. And that's fine as well. But let's listen up to what the Uganda Army chief demands.
Now picture this, it's a quiet Saturday afternoon in Kampala. A 4-star general sits down with his phone. He opens X and decides to conduct foreign policy on social media in a thread. This is General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, Uganda's Chief of Defense Forces. He had demands for Turkey, big ones, $1 billion and the most beautiful woman in that country as his wife. He gave Ankara 30 days to comply. He threatened to shut Turkey's embassy in Kampala. He advised all Ugandans to avoid traveling to Turkey for their safety. He then offered to deploy 100,000 Ugandan troops to defend Israel. Now, before you simply laugh and move on, there's actually a legitimate grievance here. It is buried somewhere beneath the theater. So here's the backstory. Stay with me. Uganda has been one of the largest troop contributors to African Union missions in Somalia since 2007. For nearly 2 decades, thousands of soldiers were deployed. Hundreds of lives have been lost fighting Al-Shabaab. This is an Al-Qaeda affiliate, and it has terrorized the Horn of Africa for years. This is where Turkey enters the picture. While Ugandan boots were on the ground bleeding, Turkey was busy building. Over $1 billion in Turkish aid, investment, and infrastructure poured into Somalia. And this started roughly back in 2014. Ankara constructed schools, it built hospitals, diplomatic missions. Mogadishu's seaport is Turkish operated. Mogadishu.
They really putting in that work, man. They're putting a lot of work in over there, man. Very proud of them. Quietly building their infrastructure.
Mogadishu's airport is run by a Turkish company. It cultivated deep political ties with Somali leadership. Turkey essentially turned Somalia into one of its most valuable African partnerships. So Uganda was doing the security heavy lifting. It made investment possible in the first place. And who was reaping the financial benefits? Turkey. That asymmetry is real. The frustration is valid. Uganda and other African Union troop contributors have long felt that the international community takes their sacrifice and then writes a check to someone else. So the general had a point. He just chose to make it in the most spectacularly sexist way imaginable. Because here's the thing, when you're demanding the country's most beautiful woman as part of a diplomatic ultimatum, it doesn't get you taken seriously. It might get you 1 million views. It transforms a historical grievance into a punchline. Turkey has not officially responded, but it has the ultimate high ground. And this is remarkably not General Muhoozi's first rodeo. In 2022, he offered 100 cows to Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Do you know why? It was a marriage proposal. In the same breath, he threatened to capture Rome if she declined. That same year, he threatened Kenya. He declared his army could take Nairobi in under 2 weeks. President Museveni, who happens to be his father, was forced to issue a formal apology. You see, General Muhoozi is not a fringe figure. He is Uganda's top military commander. He is also the son of a president who has ruled for nearly 4 decades. He is widely regarded as the heir apparent to one of Africa's most entrenched political dynasties. So the world notices, even when he speaks recklessly, especially when he speaks recklessly.
You remind me of Trump.
And his remarks undermine Uganda's story. The country gets reduced to the butt of a global joke. The post eventually was deleted, but the internet, as it always does, remembered. That is the cruel irony of governing by social media. You get the virality you want, but you rarely get to choose what it says about you. General Muhoozi wanted the world to know Uganda was owed a debt. Instead, the world is debating what most beautiful means in a diplomatic context. That is not a win, not even close. Uganda deserves better advocates for its cause. Somalia's stability remains fragile. It was built in part on Ugandan blood and sacrifice. That story deserves to be told, loudly and seriously, and without any mention of matrimonial demands. For now, though, Ankara's embassy remains open. The Turkish airline flights are still running. And somewhere in Kampala, a general is presumably drafting his next proposal.
So it was funny that he made that proposal like that and said it the way he did. I was very shocked to see that a general would use that type of language, but he wanted to bring attention to Uganda and how Uganda has supported Turkey, and Turkey yet has not gave them their flowers. Guys, in conclusion to what we heard today, you be the judge. Teaming up against the United States, Russia, China, where do the United States people reach out for help to try to solve this issue? Should they just back down and mind their business? Should we deploy more people and have innocent lives at risk? Well, I can't tell you what's the right answer or the wrong answer. I could just tell you I think we need to think about it and look at what's happening. And is it really worth it? Is it really worth the lives, the money, the economy? Why we keep going through this? Do we have a better answer? You be the judge. I'm the host here at Humanity Unplugged podcast, Jermaine McCrimmon. Thank you for your time. Have a blessed day this Thursday morning. And remember, protect yourself at all times. Peace.